let's do an introduction. It's Walker Farm in Dummerston, Vermont, and we're open for retail sales from mid-April to Thanksgiving. And then we do a fall winter CSA that goes into January, and then last year we did a small deep winter CSA because we had stuff left over that went for another 4 weeks, which was very well received. And we have 30 certified organic acres. We have 22 greenhouses, and 11 or 12 of those are certified organic, and the others are used for growing flowers for our garden center business. Like I say, I'll take you through those greenhouses and show you what we do, but if you have any questions about what you do or how, if I can answer them, I'll be glad to. The one thing you have with age, you have less stamina, but you have some knowledge because you've made so many mistakes, and that's and hopefully you learn from. So we've learned a lot because we've made a lot of mistakes, and we continually make mistakes. And hopefully, and the nice thing about this business is you continually learn. And also the nice thing about this business is it's a good way to earn a living and to be successful and make money. And especially the fall and winter CSAs, I don't know how they are wherever you're from, but here they're wide open, and we have 130 people in our fall winter one. And that's that starts after Thanksgiving. That's really an employee-driven CSA to try to hold on to employees, give them a little income through the winter. But you have to die. Somebody has to die for somebody else to get on the list. They like it so much. And it's really nice because it's run by the field crew who don't have that much experience with feedback in the stand, and they get up there and they dish out the stuff, and they get to see how appreciative the people are directly. The people that work in the stands see it constantly. People are so supportive of local agriculture and happy to have this kind of stuff. So that's what's nice for them, is to have that interaction with the customers. And if you run CSAs, you probably already do that. But we sort of have 3 groups. We have sort of a horticultural team that's strong in the spring and then whittles down, and this time of year have some people that maintain flowers and perennials and things like that. And then we have the retail people, which are the most important because they actually sell the stuff that makes everything work. And then we have the field crew, who work like hell in the field. Although it's much harder working in the stand than it is in the field, I think. These aren't typical tunnels, but I'll show you these anyway, because I always like to look when Vern Grubinger took us on a tour of greenhouses years ago up in Canada. And it's always good to look at the upper end, see what they're doing, see what's available, and see how you can fit that into your system, even if you don't use anything but a piece of plastic over, a regular hoop house. But there's different ways, alarms and heaters and different things that you can use that you can learn from. These houses, for example, are like I think this is 12-foot ridge under truss height. In Canada now, the standard that they use a lot is 20-foot high, because they want that. And old thinking was, well, you want a small little greenhouse, they don't have to heat it as much. But the funny thing, it doesn't really work that way. It works better if you have buffer area that gets heated, and your heaters don't come on as much, and it also gives you a more even temperature. So, you'll see we have a lot of little greenhouses, but each year we try to do something energy efficient to the greenhouses, and just to keep up with the maintenance so they don't get too run down. We replaced an older hoop house this year. We're putting up another one that's sort of, well, it's the same thing as that one we'll check out there. These greenhouses are made by Nexus Corporation. They call them the Atrium, and they open. Can you see that one? Is that one open? Yeah, that one's open. You can see it when you go over there. But the roof's open like this. That's the best style of ventilation, because you get like 8 to 10 feet of ventilation. These have ventilation on them, and this isn't open all the way, but when it is open all the way, it's really only about 2.5 feet, so it's not a ton of ventilation. So it's actually good for us in the spring, but for growing through the summer or something, if you were looking for more technology, you'd want ideally something that opened a little wider, let the heat out. This is a gutter connect, and which means it's 2 greenhouses together with a gutter through the center. And this is engineered. You can work with the specs because the people in South Carolina aren't going to want the same greenhouse you want, and these are sold nationally. So you tell them what the snow load will be, and you tell them what the wind will be like, and so they design them, and then you boost it up a little beyond that to make sure that it's rugged. This will hold snow from peak to peak in the center, but we don't want to get it that far because then if it snows again, you're screwed. So what you want to do with houses, some of these houses like this I was talking earlier, is that if there's a big storm coming, and I would suggest this for if anybody has like 40-foot houses like Harnois or anything like that. In Connecticut this past winter, a lot of greenhouses went down in Connecticut and Long Island. They had 38 inches of snow. You want to turn on the heaters a couple hours before the storm starts to about 75 degrees, maybe even 80. It's going to cost you some propane or oil or whatever, but especially if it's just before your growing season, and it's a lot cheaper to spend that $150, $200 than it is to take the time to take apart a broken down greenhouse and put together another one. So the ideal thing is you can shovel them off, or I don't know, are you guys familiar with snow rakes? You know, the snow rakes, you get aluminum poles and get those pretty cheap. You know, that's the best thing to do, and we've had to do that a number of times. Not so much in the last few years, but I think it was 3 years ago we had to do it quite a bit. I have 2 that are out in the field that do not have heaters in them, but if I had the utilities out there, I would put a heater in them. You know, I would not grow if I had the choice without a heater, because you've got too much investment in it, and sometimes you just need that heater for one night to save $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 worth of stuff. So you can buy old propane heaters on Craigslist, get a small 30-gallon or 100-gallon propane tank, and that you can put on a hand truck or something that wheel it around. But it's just worth it to have the security of.
Do you have to worry about, I was wondering about the snow on the unheated ones. Do you have to worry about getting the snow out?
Well, I could say we heat it. If it's going to be a big storm, we heat it before the storm.
But the ones that don't have heat?
No, we don't worry about that because they're standalones in the field, and so far they've shed it. I will say we have had storms, because I've been doing this a long time, and we had a nasty one a few years ago where we got this coating of ice, like in December, and I was really worried for my old barn here, because the snow just did not come off of that, did not slide. It's a slate barn, and I'd never seen that before. I had a friend of mine, a dairy farmer, had a slate barn. He hired a crane, and they shoveled it from the bucket off the barn because they're afraid to get on the barn. But yeah, you do what you have to do, and you have to know the strength of your greenhouse. The other thing, I think I mentioned it at the conference, but something I've learned too, when you're shoveling snow off of a hoop house, you never do one whole side at once, because the snow acts as a protective arch. And so you do all that side, and you got all that weight on the other side that's pushing it. What you do is you do the middle on one side, the middle on the other side, and then clear it off. And then you won't have to worry. The ends are strong, and then it radiates. It gets weaker as it gets towards the center. But I had a friend of mine that had about 5 30x100s in a row, was snow blowing between them, stopped for lunch. This is after we had 2 big storms in about 10 days. We came out from lunch, and one greenhouse had collapsed. He had snow blown through one side. The snow slid off that greenhouse into where after he'd went inside, and then the weight of the snow on the other side collapsed it. So you want to make sure that you evenly shovel when you clean them off. Yeah.
Is prevailing wind any relationship on those
Yep.
events?
Yep.
To the prevailing wind?
Away from the prevailing wind.
So
Yeah.
you're coming this way.
Yeah. Well, the wind we usually figure comes from the west, but this is set up east-west,
Yeah.
and so it's more set for a southern storm. These have these newer ones, and this is from a company called XS Smith, which is bought out by Rao Brothers, and it has a weather station, and I have a weather station that'll run actually these 3 greenhouses. But see this weather station up here, it measures precipitation, wind speed, temperature, and so it will shut the vents. You set the vents for 25, 30 miles an hour or something, whatever you want, and it'll shut them. Yep. And then it detects if it's rain, and it'll shut them. And then this has an energy curtain in it. It's actually manually operated, but the ones that are computer operated, the precipitation will determine if it's raining. The temperature gauge will tell if it's snow or rain. And so the energy curtain comes over at night, just before sunset. And the computer, if it senses snow, will open up the energy curtain 1/4 to let the heat go up and melt the snow, which is kind of nice, yeah. And then also, one of the big things for us is the energy curtain in the summer, providing cooling shade, especially in our retail area. But in this greenhouse, for example, we've shaded these onions, you know, to keep them from getting sunburnt so much. So. We had an energy audit done by John Bartok 2 years ago, which is very valuable. You can get that through
NRCS?
Yeah, thank you, thank you, Jack. And that was awesome. It was really educational and very valuable. And already, you know, I can see some energy savings. Just, for example, replacing the thermostats that we had Granger thermostats, have a 5-degree differential, and we replaced them with Dram thermostats, which have a 1-degree differential, and they say they pay for themselves like in 2 months. You know, so a little something like that.
So on any of these plastic houses, do you use inflated roll-ups or inflated sides?
No, they sort of inflate when you first do them, but I haven't done that. We did buy an advanced alternative system that we haven't installed yet this year for our main ingredient. Well, it's going to be a crank system to start with, and then we're hoping to automate it to test it out with the roll-up lock on the bottom. You familiar with that? It has the curve, and as you roll it up, you roll it down, and then you roll it back up, and it locks. It seals. Because we do a lot of custom grafted tomatoes in our organic house head house in February, and so. That's one that we want to make more energy efficient. These things are kind of cool too. I don't know if you've, these little clips here. This is designed by Advanced Alternative too. You know, you tack these in the wiggle wire track if you're looking for something that you can. We used to use eye hooks, but these are nice. They're recyclable and use it. And I found I have good luck with plastic clothesline. It stretches the least for me over 4 years. Plastic clothesline at the hardware store. What we've started to do, I think we've got most of the greenhouses done, is because these houses, the Nexus houses, have insulated 2-inch styrofoam that goes 2 foot in the ground or all around the perimeter. So it keeps all the draft out. And so we've taken the baseboard off of these, and we try to get it a foot in the ground and a foot behind the baseboard, and that really has made a big difference. You know, when you walk into your greenhouse in the spring and you see the weed mat waving like this, you know, you go, whoa, that's not good, because the draft is getting in there. So this cuts down the draft. So yeah, here's on this side you can see the top vent is open, and it's dropped down as a single thermostat at the top. So that's really good for this house. I like because it's really nice for tomatoes in the summer, because you don't want the tomato greenhouse to get over 90 degrees or the pollen burns. So you want that convection where the air comes up through. And instead of having exhaust fans, we have these sides that just drop. So there's no energy involved in the cooling process. And that's where a lot of energy is used, you know, so that's really nice. These other greenhouses, like this flower greenhouse, these fans in March, we have roll-up sides now, but we can't do that in March, so we have to have exhaust fans because they come on for 10-15 minutes when the sun comes out and cool it off and shut down, come on again, and you know, a little later.
Jack, is that pollen burn just for tomatoes, the 90 degrees?
Actually, peppers will drop blossoms, eggplant will drop blossoms when it gets, I find, in the field, even when it gets too hot. If, you know, I've experienced that. I don't know if anybody else does, but especially in a greenhouse, if you can control it, you want to keep it under 90.
When you blow air between the plastics layers, do you take air from inside the greenhouse or outside?
I don't take it from outside. I know a lot of people do. It's probably, I don't know, I've heard different stories about it, you know. I haven't had a big problem with condensation. If you theoretically draw cooler air in, your plastic's clearer and you get more value out of the light transmission. But it hasn't been a big issue for us. I don't know why. And we use, when we use plastic, we try to, I think I just have one well, my tunnels are actually one layer, and then one of the greenhouses here is one layer, but I like 2 layers, and so we've shifted pretty much all the 2 layers. It really helps shed the snow, having 2 layers. You don't get those pockets between the ridges. And I always use, on the under layer, AC, anti-condensant IR layer. The IR will pay for itself, especially if you're heating it and trapping the right heat rays in there. And the anti-condensant will stop that drip, the lines of drip that you'll get on crops and stuff. So you want to ask for that. It costs a little bit more, but it's worth it. DRAM thermostat, which is behind that insulated aluminum, which we roll out in the spring. You familiar with that stuff? It stands about bubble wrap, about 3 foot high, and we roll it out along the sides. It makes a nice cold barrier for breezes to come in, because we have stuff on benches, so we don't want that stuff on the floor to come in under the benches. But we use the bubble wrap, and then we also have the insulated blue board, just 1 inch thick, goes down 1 foot in the ground. Then we insulated the north wall, and we had these exhaust fans, but we put in HAFs. We had this tube fan, which were old timing. They were kind of cool, but we put in these HAFs, which give a better distribution of the heat. And then we're trying to convert to these affinity propane heaters, Affinity 93. They call them, they're 93% efficient. Like a regular Dayton or Modine heater is, if it's, that's the newer ones. Yeah, the ones we had were it's supposed to be 65 when you got them, and they're probably like 60 or less if you've had them for 5 or 6 years or so. So these are really nice. You vent them with a plastic pipe because there's so little heat that comes out. It's just like a water vapor sort of that comes out. So the thing is, you got to do the math on whether it works for you. I think if you have good heaters, like 80-85% efficiency, you don't want to just change to these. It's not going to pay. But if you're replacing an older heater, you can get these. They're a little costly. But if you call Griffin and you say, don't mention my name, please, but say, what's the best price you can give me on these? Not the list price. You can get a lot of money knocked off of them.
Is that rigid insulation?
Yes. Yeah, we just took spray cans and did the leaks. Yep. So,
what brand of house is this?
This is actually. Is this I can't remember. I think this is my first Ledgewood house that I got. Yeah, and yeah, most of my houses are Ledgewood. Ed is the master of the tunnel house. I would say it's the hints from Heloise greenhouse man. You want to make sure if you call him and talk to him, you don't have a lot of things to do. But it's a very good education, whatever he can teach you. Yeah. Okay.
This is an old one because he doesn't do that style of framing.
Yeah, a different kind of truss. And well, just a little mention about irrigation systems. So this is, we're doing hanging baskets in here in the spring. And these are pressure compensated drippers that you can use so that the first basket doesn't get all the water, and the last basket you have to grow cactus. It evenly distributes the pressure and drops it. As opposed to those over there, those are old time. We left those up. Those we put at things that like a lot of water because the water comes pouring out of those things. And I'll show you some different irrigation systems as we go through some of the other houses. So in this house, we're just starting. We planted a bed of mesclun in here. It's a little early, but this will be good for November actually. And we'll put spinach on the side of it. We got plug trays of spinach that'll go in there. I forget. I think we do 9 greenhouses with greens in them for our winter CSA and our farm stand in winter. But this is kind of cool. This irrigation system in here. These are just these little wobblers. And this will just mist out, and you can see it. It gets like a bed. And we've used the Johnny's mesclun seeder in here. You know, that's the 6-row. Go up one side, down the other. So we got 12 rows of mesclun mix in here. And we use, I think it's 5-star. It's the powdery mildew resistant one from Johnny's.
Where do you get those misters?
You can get them from either Belter Irrigation or I recommend Brookdale. Or, yeah. Well, it's over in New Hampshire, and it's Brookdale Fruit Farm, and you should do business with that guy. He is very, very knowledgeable. He'll give you exactly what you want if you get a chance.
Trevor.
Yeah, Trevor. We went over there this, I took 2, my employees, my son and another employee over there this summer. He took us around for an hour, showed it. He does 500 acres, a lot of orchards, and it's like a very valuable class. And I think it will become more and more valuable with climate change because irrigation is key for what you have to do. So. We had a lot of experience growing in cold weather because our farm stand was always open till Thanksgiving. So November used to be cold, and we grew a lot of stuff for the farm stand. So we knew that we could grow stuff unheated without a lot of heat using covers. And then the tunnel explosion came along, and we were just this is amazing. I'll show you as we get into what we grow in some of the other houses, but unheated single skin houses with 1 layer of remay into March, you know, with kale. Lettuce will go with a double sheet of remay over it on the ground. We've had it into March. Yeah, if a double sheet, you put it. I'll show you our system when we get there. We did some work with NOFA, some trials with different heights of row cover a number of years ago, and row cover we did data loggers to measure temperatures through January, February, and we did with the remay directly on the crop, the remay a foot above the crop, and the remay 2 foot above the crop. And so we had the best results, the warmest temperatures with the remay 2 foot above the crop. Once again, you think on the crop, right, would keep the most heat in. Well, of course, the cold, you don't want remay touching a crop when it's cold, so that can be a problem. You don't want the weight on a mesclun mix. This would have probably 3 of them, about 6 foot galvanized, like purlin poles that we drive into the ground a couple of feet. And then we stretch high tensile wire with like an eye hook and a tensioner. So there's like 3 lines in this, and then we get a piece of remay that will cover that and drape over it and fasten it with clothespins every, 20 feet or so. And so, the ideal situation, but we don't do it ideally, but the ideal situation would be to cover your crop and then go in late morning, uncover the crop when it's sunny, and then cover it back up again, before sunset. But we try to do the best we can. But generally, if it's a couple cloudy days in a row, we just leave it over it, and it keeps it warm. But yeah, the buffer area takes longer to heat, but it also takes longer to cool down. So, it's just worked the best for us.
What kind of weight?
I use the medium weight. I forget what that is. Yeah, 19 or something like that. Yeah, not the real heavy stuff. I haven't had real good luck with the heavy stuff. It lasts a long time. I've used it on things like sweet corn and strawberries and things, but In the greenhouse, I find that the medium one is easier to handle. It has the sealed seams on the edges. It's ideal, and it'll last indefinitely if you're careful with it. So we have specific pieces that are designated for each greenhouse that don't go into the field, and then they last.
Do you get 6 or 7 foot twists, or do you go really?
Well, there's 3 sizes we use. We use the 6-7, and then we use a 15-foot, and then we use a 30-foot. And so in these houses, we would probably use the 30-foot. Do tomatoes in those grafted tomatoes in these 2 big houses, and then we do 3 houses of what they call basket weave tomatoes, the tunnel tomatoes, and then we do field tomatoes. Ironically, the greenhouse tomatoes are always usually nicer than the field tomatoes. This year it's just about opposite, except for our early ones were spectacular, and we usually get 15 to 20 pounds. Vern Gruber did a bunch of tests last year. If anybody saw them on different organic fertilizers in the greenhouses, then we average between 15 and 20 pounds. Planting in, when do we plant? Mid-March, and pulling them around the end of August. And then I'll show you, we do a later grafted tomato planting. So the idea is to have tomatoes from when you open, we open for flower sales mid-April, and vegetable sales beginning of June, and we want tomatoes from the beginning of June until Thanksgiving. And so you have to have heat though for the tomatoes if you want them to go to Thanksgiving. They don't work with remake.
What is the twine that you're using, the blue stuff?
It's from Hydro Gardens in Colorado, and it's a special twine that doesn't break down with UV so much. Okay. We replace it every 4 years when we replace the plastic of the greenhouse, but it lasts pretty good. Occasionally we forget and something will break after 5 or 6 years, but it's been excellent. Yeah.
Jack, have you ever used the spools?
I almost made a huge investment in the spools.
They're expensive, yeah.
And a friend of mine said, they're a pain in the neck. Okay. So I don't know people that have used them. He said,
Me.
I've used them. Yeah. So.
I bought 200. I hate them.
Yeah, do you really? Yeah. So. Yeah. So that's a good first.
Do they get so high that you have to drop them?
We used to do that when we first started. What we used to do, you see these have the hooks on them, and there's usually a little extra string on top. We used to lower them because they'd get that high. We would strip the foliage, and we do a lot of foliage stripping now, but we used to strip the foliage to about 4 or 5 feet high, and then we always plant them on an angle, and so when we lower them, they would lower down. We would recompost the stem, and then we'd get like another whole planting out of it for fall. Yeah, it roots out the stem, and we used to use compost tea and stuff on them, and they really shoot up. But we found it to be really labor intensive, and so now that we're able to pull them, get what we want out of them, because the tomatoes, unless you do that, the tomatoes at the top are going to start to get a little smaller, get a little pointy, so you want to lay them down. So we get them out of there, and then we can get another crop in there. It's like a little rotation in a way, so that helps a little bit. And then we do the fall grafted ones separate, and they're like a fresher tomato, and they do a little better. And the fall ones, they don't get as big. We actually top them in sometime in late October. We top these tomato plants so that they don't produce anymore. And then these are buffaloes and some Geronimos grafted onto Max Fort. Then you can back all from the third one up to this one and spread compost in the spring and set a shovel in it. And we pump water over from a well we have over there. And so this had actually early potatoes in it. No, what was in here first? I can't remember what was in here.
Early seem to be valuable enough crop to put under a tunnel.
Actually, well, it depends on if you got a lot of tunnels, right? If you don't have a lot of tunnels, then tomatoes are what you want to put in there. But potatoes, actually, you can get a lot of poundage of potatoes, and if you're selling them for $2.49 a pound early, or so, then, and potatoes are high lately.
when they're baby ones? Or?
Nope, we're letting them get a little decent size, yeah. So we get some weight to them. But we had something in here. And so we pulled that. And now we have kale in half of this one and kale in half of the back one. In the back one we had seedless watermelons, which we just decided to mess with. They weren't too bad, but it's not a real profitable crop. So yeah, this is ginger. And last year we had really nice ginger. I wish I could find those pictures on here, but...
How hardy is this?
Ginger's not hardy really at all. It's from
you get the
Hawaii.
roots out, okay.
Yeah, so you dig the tubers up and...
It's really baby ginger.
Where'd you get your seed stock from, or the root?
It's the East Ginger Company in Hawaii, East something.
So you actually got it sent from Hawaii?
Yeah, it gets sent for, but they had serious problems with their crop, and so they had some root disease problems, and so it was. That if you here's a picture. So here's this is what a tuber will look like when you pick it up. It's a really beautiful pink. You cut the tops off of it. Leave a little top on because it adds a little extra weight. And and yeah, it just really has a nice aroma. It's a beautiful, fresh crop. Yeah, I don't think you make that much money on it, but the customers just love that stuff, you know. So the growing season is you get that, they ship it to you in, I think it's the end of March, beginning of April. And then we put it in a 6-inch pot with McEnroe compost mix. It's actually a peat light type compost mix. And we keep it in greenhouse, keep it warm. And it'll get to be actually a very nice, and we sell ornamental ginger in the perennials, variegated ginger and things like that. And then in June, you want to wait till the ground's nice and warm. You set it out in June, and ideally, grow it as warm as possible. Last year it was really warm, so we got tremendous yields. And this year, hopefully get something out of it. I'm sure, that cluster right there is going to be a good size tuber, and we don't have to worry. It sells within a week to 10 days, so they don't have to worry about storage. This sells for the best.
Plug in. This is, I believe, an RCS.
This one is, yep. I'll put that plug in. Yeah, the tunnel. Yeah, it's very appreciative, and this, they're very profitable tunnels. And so this one will pull that ginger. I have a load of kale to put in there. The ginger will probably pull in 10 days or so before it gets too cold. And kale out here in an unheated house. Another thing to consider too, and if you're interested, we can take a look at that, is if you're using 4 seasons of greenhouse, especially if you're doing fall or winter CSA, it goes hand in hand with storage. And storage has become sort of a key issue for us that we're working on. Our shipping container, it's a 40-foot insulated box, and we sawed out the end and put a COOLBOT in it. So yeah, come on in here and you can see this. So we separate it into a third, and in here we're stacking onions, and we have a COOLBOT, and it keeps, I got it set at 51 now. We gradually cool it down to like 40 degrees so they don't sweat so much. But this holds a lot of stuff, and a pallet jack comes in here, so it's really nice to slide it. And, you put a fan, maybe watch the humidity in here, put a fan in here, and a dehumidifier if you need one or something. And you can get these, they're harder to get, they cost the same if they're 40 foot or 20 foot because everybody wants the 20-foot ones, and they're kind of hard to get. These you get from a place in Springfield called Kelcon, and the guy is a really nice guy, and he will paint them whatever color you want for a certain amount of money if you want to have them blend in. I was just down there. He's working on. He's done a bunch. Well, not a bunch. He's done a few for UMass and for some universities out in California that are indoor lettuce growing systems that have all these shelves in them, stainless steel shelves, and they turn a crop over every 21 days. Kind of cool. And they make office buildings and everything out of these things. But is everybody familiar with the COOLBOT? Oh, the COOLBOT's a really cool system. It's developed by this guy. See the little control panel there with the numbers on it? You take, instead of buying a what do you call it? Not condenser. Compressor. Thank you. Had a moment. You get an air conditioner, and it's only like $300 instead of like $1,200 or something. And this fools the air conditioner into thinking it's a compressor. And it runs. First off, it costs a third as much, and it runs with about a third as much electricity. It won't like take like hot field heat out of crops, but especially this time of year, if you bring stuff in cool, it'll really keep it going. I have it set to 50, but we can make it go down usually to 38 if you have, good insulation and stuff. But it saves you a lot of electricity.
So this was actually used as a refrigerated unit.
Yep.
Originally, its original purpose.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And well, not so much the refrigerated one, but a lot of shipping containers are like use once, throw away. Yeah. Right. It's amazing. Yeah. So something like this would cost you probably about, I think it costs around $5,500. But if you can look at setting up a walk-in cooler or something, at 40 by 8 then it's probably a lot more money to build one yourself. About $5,500, and I had it painted for $500 to match the barn. So $6,000. Then it's going to cost you, depending on where you live, cost me a couple hundred to have it delivered up here and dumped up.
You save like getting refrigeration repair services.
Yes, yeah, which are expensive
That's
too.
a really
Yeah.